happening? It's your boy Wolfgang, and I'm here to talk about my picks for the top and worst albums of the year. When I started this video, I wanted to take a second and just look back at all the great achievements I've made this year so far on my channel. Now that we've looked back on the one video that I've uploaded, let's go ahead and get to the nitty-gritty. When I started this, I really wanted to make some exceptions, considering there was a lot of albums I wanted to include, but the fact that they already existed. So I'm starting off this video by talking about some exceptional remasters and reissues that I can't exactly include on my top of the year list. Thus, with remasters, I'm going to be starting by noting Wilco's Summerteeth Deluxe Reissue. I was so grateful to receive this for Christmas from my girlfriend this year, and I have to say I'm still fully amazed by how well it was done, how they were able to garner the remaster so perfectly, and also include 2 full LPs worth of demos and such. And finally, a whole 180-gram vinyl of their live show at Tower Records in 1999. It was unbelievable. But I do have to note, a bit of bias does weigh in because I was on a huge Wilco binge this year. I had tickets to go see them in March, but that never happened because literally the week before was the lockdown, which led us into the COVID-19 pandemic. And I have been extremely respectful during this time, and I just wanted to again, explore the music I couldn't really get to see in person, but there were great live editions to both the digital and the vinyl edition, with the digital version and the CD having a live
Boulder Theatre
show, if I'm not mistaken. Next, we have the Swans Children of God reissue. I do have it, but it is currently on the way from Young God Records. I was not looking forward to this after the Michael Gira-led The Great Annihilator remaster, which so many people loved. I hated it because it took away the reverby mess on tracks like I Am the Sun and Celebrity Lifestyle. I love the kind of harder, more alternative style when, in reality, he turned it into something more pristine and clean, which I just could not get behind. That being said, I really appreciated Michael Gira's attention to detail that he put into the reissue, and can't say much else other than the fact that it brought instruments you would not have expected to hear before way more forward, and hearing it digitally only makes me yearn more for the vinyl to arrive and give my full opinion then. But it was a way more vibrant experience, and I look forward to see what else in the Swans catalog Gira has up his sleeve. Next, we have another one I was very happy to be able to pick up, which was Prince's Sign of the Times, which happened to be his 1987 breakthrough that I really did appreciate after breaking up with the Revolution after so many years. The version I was lucky enough to grab was actually the Record Store Day picture disc version, and definitely a worthy release. But after seeing huge amounts of success from albums like Purple Rain, Parade, and even 1999, it was very interesting to see him return to a solo career, and I fully approve of it. It is awesome, and I love it, love it, love it, love it. So that does it for a few worthy remasters. Didn't want to take too much time on it, but again, I want to get into the nitty-gritty and start talking major spec, because that's what I'm all about, you know, your typical hater. Word up in my Northwest tuxedo, am I right? And you know, I definitely have the qualifications for talking smack when one of my favorite bands is Bastille. But if you close your eyes. Anyways, let's get this out of the way. Worst albums of 2020. Yeah,
Number 5.
I actually did not want to put this on the list, but I have been so let down by it. That's going to have to be The Strokes' The New Abnormal. I loved the singles when they came off of it, with At the Door and Brooklyn Bridge to Chorus. They were giving like Voids-esque vibes to it. I loved the styles that he brought with the Strokes into it. I loved it, and I was so excited for it. Even Bad Decisions. I hyped it, even though it became part of Radio Hell, which, you know, devolves into constant replays and everybody just gets sick of it. I still love it to this day. But the rest of it, the second I started it, especially with The Adults Are Talking and Eternal Summer, it felt way too slow and like depressing indie rock from another band that I really would not expect from The Strokes. So I was let down to a very full extent on this, and my final rating would have to be a 4 out of 10, because it just sounds like Franz Ferdinand's demos or B-sides back from their earlier days when they did self-titled. So when it's 2020 and they've had that many decades to really find their sound from 2001's Is This It? I have no words to say. Next, we have
Number 4.
Another example of an artist not staying in their own lane. That would be Car Seat Headrest, otherwise known as Will Toledo's Making a Door Less Open. I really wanted to like this album, considering Teens of Denial is one of my favorite albums of the 2010s. It was unbelievably well mastered, still nitty gritty, and just ballad ridden. It was great, and it was what indie rock needed in such an interesting time. But he can't exactly do another Twin Fantasy as we all expected. And with less instrumentation and more loop sequencers, it just results in a lazier product, which I did not want. And I'm going to have to tie it with the Strokes and give it another 4 out of 10. Next,
Number 3.
we're going to probably drop score on this one a little more. AWOLNATION's Angel Miners and the Lightning Riders. I absolutely love Aaron Bruno's projects. From Here Come the Runs to Run, there have been so many bangers from his project AWOLNATION, but at this time, it has proven that it was a total derail from the original single release, The Best, which I was so excited for. You know, they had the second release of it with Alice Merton, and it was just such a hype train. Like, yes, this is going to be rad. It's back to the whole synthesized style of AWOLNATION brought on their first 2 albums. That was undeniably repetitive and bland, which I expected way more from Aaron Bruno, so can't say much else, but we're dropping the score 3 out of 10. I'm sorry, but it felt like an original Triscuit with no cheese and nothing else, and no water nearby. Next, we have an album that Fantano willingly gave a 0, and I am pretty close to agreeing with him. Have to give a little credit when due, so I boost the score a little bit.
Number 2.
Green Day's Father of All. We all know that they've been around for decades upon decades, and at this point, this is their biggest low, in my opinion. When, you know, Uno, Dos, and Tres were kind of on the fence, Revolution Radio, still kind of this is an all-time low. And I am very disappointed with just the attempt that they're trying to perform. But I do have a theory. I think this is an album really being put out to try to get kicked off their label, similar to how Prince did. And a fact that if they keep releasing music like this, the label's just going to drop them, similar to, unfortunately, to how Wilco was dropped from Reprise Records earlier on and had to go to None Such Records in 2002 for their critically acclaimed mass Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, which if you have not heard, I'd recommend checking it out. But back to the bad. I have nothing good to say about it. From start to finish, it is just a constant drone of the same 3 or 4 chords with nothing that I would call home about. Final score 2 out of 10 and a waste of my time. We are down to my
Number 1
pick for the worst album of the year. And before I do, let's give a little preface. As we already know, the genre pop punk is slowly and steadily dying. There are some bands that are still trying to keep it alive, including Neck Deep, just name one of them. But if a brand is dying, the way to save it is not to pour gasoline on the already remaining dumpster fire that exists. And that artist who did this happens to be Machine Gun Kelly. So my worst pick for the album of the year would have to go to Tickets to My Downfall. Somehow he was able to take Hotel Diablo and go worse than that, which I didn't think was possible, and devolve into pop punk with literally no meaning at all. It was heartbreaking at times, just how sad he's trying to attempt to make rock out of hip-hop style, and he should have stuck with his breakthrough album, Bloom, which of course was not his debut, but his more critically acclaimed feature. So if he stuck with that style that he had on that and Lace Up, I would have appreciated this way more and probably given it maybe a higher rating or put it on my honorable mentions list. But no, there is nothing to say about this. It is uninventive, the opposite direction of where I really want rock to be going, and everything that disappoints me in music today, just all in one album. I'm gonna have to give it a 0 out of 10. Goose egg. There we go. Yay. Anyways, let us get to some honorable mentions.
Wow.
You know, some picks that I thought were really good, but were around 6 or 7s, not exactly worthy of my picks for, you know, album of the year, because I'm leaving it to 5. First, we have Clipping's Visions of Bodies Being Burned, referencing the Ghetto Boys' 1992
song lyric from Mind Playing Tricks on Me.
I absolutely loved it from start to finish. Daveed Diggs proves to be an amazing rapper as always, signed to my hometown label, Sub Pop. If you're looking for an industrial hip-hop with truth being dropped left and right, I can't recommend it more. Next, we have Smashing Pumpkins CYR. I wanted to hate this album, actually, considering their last attempt to bring the band back together wasn't as good as we'd all expected, around a 3 or 4 territory. But I'd have to give this one a 6, and a step in the right direction towards synthpop, so can't argue there. Next, I loved this album, but I just feel like it just missed the grasp around 6 or 7. Oh, GORILLAZ Song Machine Volume 1. Damon Albarn comes back again as the genius that he is, bringing so many features like Slow Tie, Elton John, and so many others on board. Loved it from start to finish, but I felt like there was so much more important music this year. Can't give this album enough credit. Seriously, go check it out if you haven't. From old fans to new fans, I think this is a better step than we had with the Now Now or Humans, which I thought they were just okay on so many levels. Next, Soccer Mommy's Color Theory. It's just as good as her label debut.
Clean.
Would totally recommend it for those that are into the indie lo-fi sound but are also looking for extremely talented female-fronted bands. Really, go check her out. It's an amazing album. And then we had the album of the year, according to Consequence of Sound, Pearl Jam's Gigaton. I really enjoyed it despite everybody being on the fence with it. It was a step in the right direction from Lightning Bolt, so gotta give credit to Seattle legends when due. Go check it out. Next, Nine Inch Nails' Ghost 5 and 6, which he dropped free during the pandemic, and I have to give Trent Reznor so much credit because he also revealed that they were going to tour this year and have 3 nights at the Paramount locally, which I missed out the chance on getting, but all of the donations and proceeds from the t-shirts actually went to local food banks of their choice. So bless Trent for releasing that for free. 2 whole albums worth of just ambient music similar to Ghosts 4, which later gave us Old Town Road, so props to all that. Then we had an artist I luckily got to see live 2 weeks before the pandemic, Thundercat. It is what it is. I absolutely loved the album from start to finish. It was very funkadelic. It showed his same talent that he did live. I cannot stop laughing at some of the tracks, especially in the music videos like Dragon Ball Durag and Black Qualls. I cannot recommend Thundercat enough for bass livers everywhere, and hopefully you'll enjoy it too. Next, I'd like to give a shout out to my boy on Discord, Ethan. Absolutely loved it when it came out, but he loved it as well. It would be Peach Pit's You and Your Friends. Just some good old classic indie rock with some groovy feels. Can't deny it, even though it's fairly depressing, the content that they do get into. You know, I still enjoyed it. It was moving and grooving despite what they got into, so take it as you will. Next, we had Oliver Tree's Ugly is Beautiful. I would have loved this album way more if we got some newer songs out of it, but it almost felt like a compilation of his last 2 EPs and a few extra tracks added in here and there. I would have loved to hear some newer content and collaborations that he had done with weeknd, which he proved to be successful on Freefall. I really wanted to boost this and be in the top 5 of the year, but you know what? It's Oliver Tree. It was fun. I really enjoyed some of the tracks like Jerk. And next we have an album that I loved, hated, and now I appreciate as part of the discography. That would be the 1975's Notes on a Conditional Form. The biggest problem a lot of people had was the fact that this album is 22 tracks long, and it felt like the themes were constantly changing from an environmentalist stance and wanting to change our societal views on people, and the opening track, which was actually voiced and narrated by Greta Thunberg. Can't say where it went from there on the album because it goes back into Matt Healy documenting his abuse history and also yearning for a time when we're not in quarantine with tracks like Guys and The Birthday Party. But that being said, the whole title gives us hint and a leeway into what it was. Notes on a Conditional Form, meaning this was almost like a notebook of thoughts being let out onto the world, hence why there were so many tracks, because this is almost like an intentional B-side collection, but all recorded with the same purpose. So, interesting concept, but it failed to develop as well as their others, especially A Brief Inquiry into Online Relationships, so it's 6 or 7 worthy. Next, we have another female artist I cannot give enough credit to, beabadoobee, for Fake It Flowers. It was an amazing album, and as her debut full-length LP, I was so happy to pick this up, especially the fact that it was pressed on translucent red. Can you believe that? Next, we have Jeff Tweedy's Love is the King, another very valiant solo effort after the very successful Summerteeth reissue I already discussed. Jeff Tweedy is an amazing musician, and I feel deserves a lot more credit for his songwriting abilities rather than his playing. But seriously, worth checking out if you've heard his other solo works, or if you're a semi-Wilco fan. Next is an album that took me a few times to get through to really understand the pain and wretchedness that the singer went through. Fiona Apple's Fetch the Bolt Cutters. I did talk about this with a few friends that, it was harder to understand because it's definitely from a woman's perspective, but I still felt the pain and emotion that came from this. And I really, really, really would put this in my top 10, but because I had to keep it to 5 only for my top of the year, this just missed the cut as well. Seriously worth checking out and worthy of the 10 that it received from Pitchfork. Next, we have an album that I did not want to like when I first heard it came out, but I surprisingly enough enjoy. I want to give a shout out to my boy DGDBBY DBM2 for Dance Gavin Dance's Afterburner. You know, I've never been a fan of the group, and I've always thought they were just okay on so many levels because I had never really been into the genre that they fall under, but this album changed it for me. I loved it from start to finish. It gave a very Headbangers Ball kind of vibe if you used to watch that show back in the 90s. Seriously, check it out, and it will change your opinion on the band, because looking back at their older stuff, I realized I actually do appreciate them a lot more now. Next, we have Glass Animals' Dreamland from their feature with Denzel Curry, Tokyo Drifting. to the very summer-themed heat waves, I think this album was such a vibe, and I'm so disappointed that I got to miss seeing them live the week that the pandemic hit. I saw the Strokes, and then 2 days later, when they were supposed to be here, they canceled the signing, and then they canceled the concert, so big disappointment, and they had to cancel it rather than postpone it, so you can't win them all. We have finally reached the time, drum roll please, for my top 5 of the year. Let me get my hand in deep. There we go. Run the Jewels 4. I really loved this album, especially with Killer Mike and LP dropping some of their best tracks in their discography to date, in my opinion. But it is only rivaled by Run the Jewels 2. Easy pick for an 8 out of 10. Absolutely loved it, and if you haven't heard it yet, I cannot stress it enough, considering they dropped it for free on their website for a little while for donation. I actually dropped $15 for it because I felt like it was so worthy for the cause, considering the protests that were going on at the time. And Killer Mike's speech at the city of Atlanta really did change my viewpoint on the album. If you haven't seen either, I'm going to drop both in the description. At number 4, we have a bias that many of you are probably not surprised to hear. Asterhouse's Soul vs. Skin. Yes, I know that there's a little bit of bias considering I personally know these guys, but there's just something magical amidst the post-grunge rock riffs and John's belting voice throughout. We finally get the release of some live favorites that they've been playing for years, like Scarred Angels and Dream Until You Scream. Absolutely love those tracks. And the transition between the loud and gritty tunes to the slow acoustic ballads, which happens to be the title track of the album, it's just seamless. It feels like it's a dream almost, like you're going from headbanging to suddenly you got your lighter out and you're just relaxing and enjoying the vibe. You know, arms over the person next to you, you don't even know. It doesn't matter. Seattle legends as it is, and the host of Audio Oasis here on KEXP actually put this album on her top 10 picks for the year. Gotta check it out. And also with each project they put out, it just feels like it keeps getting better, from their self-titled, which they don't like to talk about, Errors That Smile, Basement Secrets, and The Dead Victorians. It just keeps getting exponentially better each time. And I'll leave it at there. Final score, 9 out of 10. Next, we have an album I've got to flex on, The Weeknd's After Hours. I'm only flexing because I happen to have a signed copy of the album. And with that being said, I was so disappointed this did not receive a single Grammy nomination. And it is one of the facts to why I will not be watching the awards ceremony or checking live updates this year. Now, that being said, from the 80s synth vibes to deep and personal songwriting, I think it's some of his best work to date, with Starboy and Beauty Behind the Madness being just as good in my opinion, showing that he can make the charts but also have a hard-hitting message on songs like In Your Eyes, Blinding Lights, even though those are two of the biggest singles from the album. And he went through all the trouble to get on the charts, talking about his personal life and really putting himself out there for what resulted in an amazing album and what I would give an easy 9 out of 10. And if you haven't seen any of the visual aspects of it yet from his 6-minute film for After Hours, it's just that much more worthy for a lot of people's top of the year lists, and I cannot stress enough, this is some of his best written work to date. Next, we have an album that literally brought me to tears, and I remember listening to it on the way to work that day thinking, okay, this is going to be big, but I was not expected for the raw emotion that was brought forth. Mac Miller's Circles. It is undeniably well written, though the sad fact is you can definitely tell from his songwriting that Mac Miller could tell his time was coming. And now that we know that more unreleased material could be on the pipeline, that it's going to be hard to get through emotionally, especially with Thundercat revealing that they had 2 albums worth of songs that they could have released, but he's not going to at this time because a lot of people are still in grieving for losing one of the greatest names in music to date, and I really don't know what else to say other than the fact that the production, the lyrics, and everything that came together so smoothly on this album gives it its worthy 10, in my opinion. But it could only be rivaled by one more album, not by him, but my top pick for the best album of the year. Quickly in the comments, what do you think my top pick is going to be? I'll wait. Oh, and if you haven't subscribed yet, I'll take a second. Go ahead, hit that little button below. You liked it too, right? Okay, one more sec. Alright, now that we've gotten through this, we come to my top pick for the year.
1.
No memes are coming out of this. It is Lovings If I Am Only My Thoughts. I remember seeing this on a Facebook ad thinking, okay, they're just trying to get me to buy into the album. Like, why would they advertise this on Facebook? But since I heard that clip of Lately in Another Time, that album spoke to me on so many levels, and I loved the acoustic vibe that they'd taken on from their previous lo-fi and chorus-laden EPs, and I actually have to say, this was a strategic marketing plan that I am so happy that had found me in such an amazing time that I needed it too in January 2020. And I've absolutely loved that this happens to be their first debut full-length album, considering their last effort was their self-titled EP. And I am looking forward to seeing when I can actually get a copy myself. But there's just so much I can appreciate it for this album getting me right back into folk and Americana and so many other just chill vibes of music. And with that, I can give it another final score of 10 out of 10. With that being said, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you all for liking, subscribing, all that jazz, and I will hopefully see you next year with more videos and more cooking adventures. Rock on, guys, and be sure to check the description below for all of my picks and honorable mentions. Thank you all, you're the best.